Congratulations to them. They're actually playing now in the championship section as well, so they've got to get back, stop the celebrations till a little bit later on in the day. I give you the full results because they've actually now come through to us. So just to recap, the soloist prize was won by the trombonist Rob Wilshaw from Foresters Brass, but in third place was the Longridge Band, conducted by Mark Peacock. In second place was Foresters Brass Band, and the winners were Ellen Silver Band, and the full results will be coming out and be published, and we'll put up onto the screen here as soon as we get them. So if you follow us there, I'm quite sure that there'll be plenty for you to look at, read and digest, and then hopefully give you your opinions on it by logging into the First Arts website or using the Twitter hashtag #FestOfBrass. Right, before the championship section starts, we are back on the sofa. Well, our roving reporter Chris Thomas has finally got back to us. He got lost in the Bermuda Triangle that is somewhere outside Bowls, over by the sounds of it. So welcome back, Chris. You'll have to tell us.
It was Fozzie's lack of built-in sat-nav. That was the
it was. Oh, there we are. Kenny's back with us as well, and Stephen Mead. So we'll be discussing just a few more little bit of topics before we go to the action, which starts. I would have thought in about the next 5 or 6 minutes. The first band, just to let you know, that will be on will be Kibworth, under the musical direction of Dave Hollin. They'll be playing Phoenix from War of the Worlds by Peter Graham, followed by Be Glad, William Himes, and that's a flugel soloist, Carol Smith. Then we've got the Prelude to the 49th Parallel, which is Vaughan Williams, arranged by Roy Douglas. And they will be finishing off with Madrigalum by Philip Spark. So they're going to be the first band on. There are 13 bands in the championship section, so it's going to be a long afternoon, but highly enjoyable. Dr. Roger Webster is already ensconced in his desk. He's not so
Eagle's Lair.
The Eagle's Lair, he is. So we'll give him a wave, Roger, if you're there. I'm quite sure he's going to enjoy himself and he's going to be impressed by the play here. So before we just go back there, just some little viewpoints on the first section in general. Kenny, you were there throughout it. Again, we talked about, there was variations, especially in the repertoire. Some of the standard of playing was a little bit variable as well, but overall enjoyable stuff and some well-chosen programmes.
Yeah, I think that's it, well-chosen programmes, and I think the winning programme certainly hit the spot with the audience, and obviously with David Childs, but they got that really good balance of good playing and good musical entertainment, didn't it? A lot of engagement with the audience in the first and last pieces, the young chap and the xylophone, it was terrific stuff, wasn't it? So well done to Ellen, and a band that's really become extremely consistent at this level in the last few years.
They've got a good youth policy as well, and they're bringing young players. They've continually brought young players.
Isn't it great to see bands that do that, just to succeed in the way that Ellen has? And it's a band we've been watching for many years now. We've seen them come through the third section, second section, first section, and now they're doing extremely well at this level. Who knows if much further they can go?
Yeah.
I mean, the youth band are a joy to watch, aren't they?
Oh, they're fantastic.
We've had
Harrison, of course, who played Principal Cornet.
We've had so much fun watching them. I mean, they're a great band, and their entertainment programmes are just marvellous.
It's the discipline in their playing, though.
Absolutely,
that underpins everything.
Yeah.
Well, it brings me back because we're just going to go back to Stephen Mead then, talk about the discipline in the playing. First section level, these are bands who, notionally are aiming for the championship section and are playing against the likes of the Black Dykes and the Coreys of this world.
Yeah.
We've talked in the past, that gap is huge.
It's huge.
There is a gap to the, we would say the lower championship section level. And when you hear a band that's got all those basics right, such as Ellen, they're a band that can make that step up. But again, it's about getting those basics, the foundations put in place.
It's about good leadership. Essentially, you look at all the bands that have achieved, you have somebody who's giving stability, who's giving very clear instructions, motivating. I mean, the job of an MD of the first section band is really, really hard. I mean, you are a kind of teacher, you have to be a disciplinarian, but you can't push, some of these young players too hard. I really don't envy their jobs. I think those that do it well deserve full praise for what they do. The leadership at this level is so important.
One of the interesting things this afternoon is there were several bands that have played in the first section that we're now going to hear play in the championship section. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how those bands fare.
Ambition. Is
Absolutely,
ambition.
yeah.
You know, sometimes we hear this. We've been out in Norway, and when you go to the a third section contest out in Norway, and all of a sudden somebody's playing Paganini variations or whatever, and you're thinking, blimey, this is good, until you hear them play. And the ambition is raced away. You congratulate them for it, and the verve, and what they want to be trying to do.
Ambition is good to a point, but
yeah.
but it can also be very, very damaging if it's not handled in the right way.
I think you've probably got to look inside the reasons for them doing it, though. It may be that some of them are driven by trying to impress the judges by saying we can play this difficult piece in the third section, even although you might find that they're not playing it as quite as well as they'd like to. But I think there may be a mindset among a certain type of bander and certain type of conductor that says, well, if we show them how ambitious we are, we're going to do better. But it doesn't necessarily work like that in practice, does it?
But in a strange way, I remember a few years ago we were at the Scottish Youth Championships,
Yeah.
and this young band came on and played an arrangement of
Pictures at an exhibition.
Pictures at an exhibition.
Remember it well.
And I always
Yeah,
remember, because
yeah.
when they announced it, everybody in the audience went, "What?" But it was a fantastic,
brilliant though, wasn't it?
brilliant arrangement,
Yeah.
so simplified,
Yeah.
and the band played it. It was.
And the average age of the
Yeah.
band was lucky if it was 12.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Really was.
but it was one of the
elementary.
cleverest
Yeah.
bits
Yeah,
of
it was
doing
really
it. So
good.
they had plenty of ambition there, but
Yeah.
something like that worked.
Can I
Go on,
just one point has been on my mind since I've been here this morning. I think all the programs have been picked well within the reach of the bands. I think they've been varied, but I'm really, if I'm really honest, I'm really surprised how old the repertoire is that most of these bands are playing. Their repertoire that when I was conducting my high school band in the 1980s had already been around a long time. So it begs the question to me, is that where does the hunger for new ideas come from? Does it come from the members? Clearly not. They play the music that they're asked to play. Does it come from the conductor? Well, maybe, but maybe a band's budget for buying new arrangements is very limited. But I would really expect to hear a lot more fresh sounding things rather than a nice feature, a novelty here. But then the number of Ray Woodfield arrangements, which were great in their day,
40 years ago, yeah.
but they're 40 years old, and from what I can hear, it's occupied about 30 or 40% of the rep.
One of the
So-
strangeness I find is that you would have thought nowadays, with so many young players coming through, that there'd be more, I would say, pop songs, whatever, of a certain generation. But we hear Painted Black by, the Rolling Stones, which
Yeah.
must be nearly 50 years old.
Yeah.
You hear, possibly a little bit by ABBA, which is 40 years old.
Yeah.
Lennon McCartney, that's nearly
Yeah.
50
Yeah.
years old. You don't hear the
we need-
Prodigy here.
But this is, I think, exactly what Steve is saying, is that at the end of the day, that if the players had involvement in that and choice in that,
Yeah.
we might actually hear different repertoire. But of course, it's not the players that are choosing the pieces in many cases.
We almost need a kind of pimp up my library kind of thing going on where
That's a great
where
little piece, my library.
but advisors can go around, or even representatives from music publishers saying, look, we'll give you 2 free sets if you can buy 3 sets. There's music publishers not getting their stuff played. There's arrangers thinking, why on earth should I publish music for brass band because nobody buys anything. I think we need to break that cycle for the next generation of entertainment, because otherwise we are playing for, we sit here going, oh, I remember this, and we're all partaking in some kind of museum when it comes to repertoire. Now, we love the freshness and the presentation. They do that really well. And you see young kids showing confidence and young players all around the band. That's brilliant. But they're not playing music that's up to date with them.
You don't think it's just as part of the British brass band culture, though?
I absolutely think it
tend
is.
We tend to think
Yeah.
backwards. We look behind us not all the time. We're not looking
You
at the
know
front
my
end of the
opinion on
car.
that.
But if you go to Norway to the Cirrus contest, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what section you got to.
Yeah.
We're talking themed programmes. You're going to get a themed programme from nearly every band in the third section.
Yeah.
And a lot of it'll be what you're saying, the
Yeah.
music that the kids are singing and listening to
Yeah.
their iPods nowadays. If they've even still got iPods, I don't know
Yeah.
what to do. But it doesn't quite happen so quickly here, does it?
I-
There's not
you
the
know,
same
if
appetite
we
for
have
that.
if we have listeners, if we have viewers now from Norway, for example, that've been to cities, I'd be really interested to know their opinion on the music they've heard in the first section, they must be checking the date stamp on their video to check that we're 2016. I don't want to be too unkind, but I'm given what's
But it is
happening
well
in other
for-
places in Austria, even the Netherlands. There's so much more kind of fresh and outgoing.
But when you say that in a strange way, we were talking earlier about people like Howard Snell. A lot of the stuff that Howard Snell brought to the bands was stuff that was music that was 60 and 70 years old. He was picking stuff out of the, like T for Two and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It was from, but the difference was that it was a genre that brass bands
It was
had never played.
and it was a clever genre.
Yeah,
It
Yeah,
had
and it,
quality.
was, but it had never
It made
been
it-
arranged for brass bands, but it wasn't a rehash, as you say, like of some of the pieces, which is the third or fourth generation arrangement of a work that we've already heard.
Yeah.
So, is there scope, you think, of music from the new millennium to come through? I think in a lot for the younger players, for pop music, but in many ways, pop music continually looks backwards.
Well, it does. I
when is the
think. I
new-
think pop music's lost its way. But you see, what was refreshing was to hear a band play something from a Nozzle Brass.
Mhm.
You know, okay, it's never going to sound like Nozzle Brass. You know, but at least there's the freshness in the presentation, and the musical idiom is not so stereotypical. You know, of what we expect to hear at a brass band
I mean, it
contest
also
in the UK.
raises fundamental questions about what we consider to be entertainment. I mean, we all remember a couple of years ago here, Derwent Brass played a whole programme by Paul McGee, which was a constructed programme called Episodes, Occurrences and Interludes,
Yeah, frequencies, isn't it?
which
It was
was
great.
all about the history of Derwent Band, essentially, and events that had gone on with the band. Now that was a brave thing to do, and that raised a lot of questions over what
Yeah.
entertainment is. Paul's music is pretty edgy, but that was something that really, I think, made a statement about
Yeah.
what we consider to be entertainment to be, what we
But
consider
I
entertainment
think
to
another
be.
point is that there was a bravery about that, because I think they knew that it may be not going to win, but they did it as a musical statement,
Absolutely,
rather than
absolutely.
a competition
Yeah,
statement, which
yeah.
is the trap that many bands find themselves in, that they thinking that they've got to play
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
type of
Yeah, how
music.
many bands
Yeah.
how many bands have actually chosen a programme with a particular adjudicator in mind, thinking that's old so and so, he'll like this.
Yes, sure.
You know, but
Old
you know,
David Childs.
old David Childs.
Old David Childs.
There should have been euphonium solos in every program.
I think the other thing about that piece, though, and this comes back to the question of funding that you raised, Stephen, and raising money, is that piece was commissioned with essentially, I think, Arts Council funding or funding through charity, and was commissioned on the basis that it was going to receive a certain performances, and the Bolsover Festival of Brass was a fundamental part of them obtaining the money to commission that piece of music. Now there's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
Why haven't more bands taken that concept and run
Yes.
with it? Because there are so many possibilities.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about funding being difficult. Yes, it is difficult, but there are examples there that show that it can be done if you have innovative ideas, and if you come up with something that is actually going to further music from an artistic point of view. That's exactly what that band
Or trying to
did.
persuade music publishers to add on prizes in the way of gift vouchers purely, sheet music.
Yeah.
It's in their interest, because then they'll probably come back and buy more in the
Yeah,
future from that.
yeah.
You see, the other
Is it an appetite for change, though? That we're saying that. well,
probably not here.
No.
No.
Is it going to be? Are we going to find ourselves still doing this in 5 years' time and looking back, possibly with other people?
Well, you see,
or
I
is
don't-
it going to be a fundamental change, and somebody's going to say, right, this is
Yeah.
where brass bands really need to go, and we shoot off in a different direction.
If I was, I think this contest is brilliantly run. Everything I've seen here today has been absolutely first class. But if I was running it from a musical point of view, I would draw up a list of criteria to say this entertainment contest is going to reward the following things. Obviously, great presentation, traditional band sound, but innovation and the special prizes for new performances. But I don't think it happens. It's just come along and just play and entertain as you wish.
but is it
if you,
again that
you could
that
just change the
appetite
ground
then?
rules a
Yeah.
little bit to change the appetite.
But the appetite here as well, I think, in playing devil's advocate here, is that we've got to try and bring the audience along with the bands. And if you dislocate the audience too rapidly, you lose them forever.
But if you
trying
play
to
these
bring them
programs
into
over
it.
and over again, that audience just gets older and older, and eventually.
Well, play away.
So
Off you go.
we're not talking about we need all programs from Paul McGee next year, but
That'll be great, though, wouldn't it?
It would be interesting.
And that was, to be fair, an extreme example,
Extreme
maybe.
example.
But nonetheless,
But
there was a concept
Yeah.
there was a band willing to take a chance and to do something that little bit different. And we need to see that. We need to see bands that are willing to take those risks.
But even if you said, look, within a 20-minute program, we would like one piece that we would class as progressive for your new audience.
Yeah.
Now, we're not going to give you a list of pieces, but you show us what you think could be for the next generation of audiences. Then you could do it step by step.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think they'll just enjoy playing these same pieces year on year.
This is how it's been done in the orchestral world. I mean, if you look back at classical music over the last 10 or 20 years, contemporary works have been edged into programs, not always with great popularity, it must be said, but there has slowly become a greater degree of acceptance of contemporary music in the classical world because of the way that they program the music.
Yes, that's right.
It's interesting that, I could just give plug for 4 Bars Rest. Gavin Higgins has just done an article for us, which he's put iconic test pieces of each decade from Labour and Love onwards.
Oh, really?
And in the 1950s, of course, he's put Resurgam, and then a piece that we were talking about last night.
Xenakis.
The Xenakis, Metastasis.
Yeah.
And if you listen to the difference between those two, they are absolute polar opposites.
Of course they are.
So, it may be asking too much to get that into a brass band.
On a different theme for different audiences, played by amateurs as regards professionals. I'm not sure how you can put those two together, apart from say, look how far behind we are. And
But if you think about it, brass band repertoire is only 100 years old. That's just that in the history of music and human life. We've only been around for 100 years writing our own music. When we were playing Labour and Love, and everybody was thinking this is fantastic, innovative stuff. Stravinsky was writing The Rite of Spring.
Yeah.
That's how far behind we were then, and you could argue that we're still the same distance behind, although
But
you get new voices coming into brass bands to try and pull us forward.
But even when those composers, like Gustav Holst, for example, kind of dabbled with brass bands, he never wrote anything like The Planets originally for brass band, because he didn't know how to treat it. There was these amateur musicians who play very well, and they've come from the operatic tradition, so everything becomes kind of watered down for what they perceive to be the medium.
It's still some of the greatest music we've ever had.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I think the last 5 years, I've seen a really positive sign, and I would like to see it filter through into contests like this, where bands take a bit of a chance.
Well, I'm going to cut you off there, Stephen. We're going to I'm quite sure we're going to be able to carry on this conversation as we go on now through the afternoon. But for the time being, it's the start of the championship section, and we're going to go back to the hall to join Simone Rebello, where the first band is just about ready to take the stage.
Very good afternoon to you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the championship section in the Bolsover Festival of Brass. We're having a fantastic day here with over 45 bands spread over the 6 sections in our 2 halls. And for our championship section, we have the pleasure of our adjudicator, Roger Webster, who is joining us for the afternoon and evening. Perhaps you'd like to welcome Roger.